Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and it's been a while, not since I last uploaded a video, but since I last filmed a video, because I think that was before Easter, because pretty much all of my videos that I recently filmed were pre-filmed, or that I recently uploaded were pre-filmed, that's what I wanted to say. And yeah, today, once again, is going to be a video that I just wanted to have a low effort video. I just came from work. I'm gonna have to leave again for uni in like 1.5 hours. I just did not want to make a video that I would spend too much effort on. And so what I thought I'd do is that, since some of you asked for it in my 2023 r/fantasy TBR video, which by the way I will link down below. In today's video I'm going to tell you about which books I read for my 2022 r/fantasy bingo. So it'll be a bingo wrap up basically. However, a few things first. I will have to talk about 25 books to get through it as quickly as possible. I will not give you summaries to each book. I will just try to tell you how each book fits the prompt that I chose it for, and then maybe I will say one or two things whether I like the book or whether I didn't like the book. And so yeah, let's get started. I did manage to complete all prompts. I did not manage to complete all prompts on hard mode, however. But starting with the first row and with the first prompt, a book from the r/fantasy's top LGBTQIA list. Any book on the list, including sequels, and the hard mode was a book or series that received 10 votes or less. I actually wasn't that happy with that prompt, because I'm like, why can't you just say a book with LGBTQIA representation or inclusivity or whatever? And I had read most of the books that I wanted to read from that list already. However, I still found one, and that was An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. This, at the time that I picked out the books, was hard mode. It had less than 10 votes. I think it had 8 or 9 votes. It's speculative science fiction is what I would call it. The main character is queer. Were they queer? I don't remember if the main character was queer. To be honest, I don't remember a lot from that book, even though I only read it this year, actually. But yeah, watch my, I think, January wrap up if you want to know my thoughts on that book, which by the way I will try to leave the corresponding wrap ups as well as reviews linked down below for the books. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Also, the author, Rivers Solomon, is genderqueer as well. I believe they identify as non-binary or somewhere on the non-binary spectrum. And so yeah, I did enjoy it overall, but I would say this is a great book. However, the way it was written was not for me personally. The next prompt was Weird Ecology. Story takes place in a world that is wildly different from our own and includes such things as unique environments, strange flora and fauna, and unusual ecosystems. And the hard mode was not written by Jeff Vandermeer or China Miéville. And for this one, I chose The Forever Sea by Joshua Philip Johnson. So once again, I got hard mode. The way this fits the prompt is that this world basically has the Forever Sea, which is this big prairie made up of huge grass where no one knows what's at the bottom of it. And above the prairie, there's just ships floating and merchants and pirates and stuff. And I really enjoyed it. This was the first book that I read this year. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved and adored it, and I'm currently reading part 2 and once again highly enjoying it. Prompt number 3 was 2 or more authors, which by the way I am constantly looking down because I have the prompts right here and I'm reading them obviously. 2 or more authors, any book written by 2 or more authors, such as This Is How You Lose the Time War. Anthologies count, and hard mode is 3 or more authors. I did not get hard mode for this one. I originally had planned to read Labyrinth's Heart by M.A. Carrick for this one. However, the release of that one was pushed back from 2022 to 2023, or summer of 2023, and so I had to choose another one. And for this one I kind of fucked up the book that I chose for this one, because if you have watched my TBR video for my 2022 r/fantasy bingo, you will know that I said that I wanted at least half of the books to be by BIPOC authors, at least half of the books to have queer main characters or be by queer authors, and I do not want to have any books by publicly cis het white male authors. So I want books by authors that in some way are marginalized. And I kind of forgot about it, just, you know, trying to think of books that would fit this prompt, because I don't have many books on my TBR that were written by multiple authors. And so I ended up going with Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, both of whom obviously are not necessarily what I would call marginalized authors. And in terms of SFF, I kind of count women as marginalized authors as well. I mean, there's discussions whether women are a marginalized community or not, and obviously it depends on a lot of things whether as a woman you are marginalized in a situation. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. I read Good Omens. It's written by two authors. I thought it was fine. I thought it was fun. Both authors don't necessarily have a writing style that I always gel with. Like with Neil Gaiman, I either love his books or they're like middle of the road for me. Terry Pratchett, I knew that he's not necessarily the author for me. What I found interesting with this book is how some things in the book aged really, really well, and other things just aged really poorly, I have to be honest. So I feel like we need to pick this up, otherwise we'll be here for ages. Next I have historical SFF, any book within the historical fantasy subgenre. Hard mode, not based in Britain or Ireland. And by the way, I did the Storygraph challenge as well, and the books that people put for historical fantasy just kind of upset me, not gonna lie, because historical fantasy is set within our world. Historical fantasy is low fantasy, it's not secondary world fantasy. However, there were people putting the Poppy War for historical fantasy. Like, inspired by concrete history within our world does not make a book historical fantasy. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on this one. For this one, I read The Bond Undone, or A Bond Undone, by Jin Young, which is the second book in the Legends of the Condor Heroes. I'm sorry, there's someone on a motorbike outside right now. But anyway, I enjoyed it as well. It was like a fun little ride. I really enjoy the wuxia type storytelling. For those of you who don't know, Legends of the Condor Hero is set in, I think, the 12th or 13th century in China. And so, yeah, I have hard mode with this one once again. The last prompt for the first row is Set in Space, a book that takes place primarily at least 50% off planet, on a spaceship, space station, asteroid, etc. Hard mode, characters are not originally from Earth. It is acceptable for the characters to be descendants of Earthlings as long as they themselves are not for Earth. I have a book that I'm not quite sure if it actually counts for this one, but if this one hadn't counted or wouldn't count, I still read another book, which is The Red Skull's Wake, which mainly takes place on a spaceship. But the book that I still ended up reading for it is Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie, because I wanted to read it. And I guess it does take place a lot on different planets or in different cultures, but yeah, I still chose it anyway. Once again, I enjoyed it. It's like a lot of these books are between 3 and 3.5 stars for me, so they are books that I enjoyed, even highly enjoyed, but I didn't love necessarily. The thing that I really enjoyed about this one, though, that I actually somewhat, I would say, loved about this one is the queer world building that happens in this book. So now we're at the second row, a standalone, a book that is not part of a series or larger world, no connected novellas or short stories, and hard mode is not on r/fantasy's favorite standalones list. And the book I picked for that one is Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. This is a standalone retelling of the Ramayana from the point of view of one of the women who is villainized within the Ramayana. And I really loved this. So this is the first book, aside from The Forever Sea, I guess, the second book that I really, really loved. Not in terms of when I read them, but in terms of when I'm talking about them. Can you tell that I am very much like with my head somewhere else today? I'm a mess right now, low-key. Anyway, I really enjoyed this. It's a standalone. I think I get hard mode with this one. It definitely wasn't on the favorite standalones list when I picked out the books because it wasn't even published back then. So, you know, I think I get hard mode with this one. Second prompt for the second row is an anti-hero. Wikipedia describes an anti-hero as a character in a story who lacks conventional heroic qualities and attributes. Although they may sometimes perform actions that are morally correct, it is not always for the right reasons. And Hard Mode is a YA book with an anti-hero. And for this one I chose Iron Widow by Xiran Xie Zhao. And I would say Wu Zetian definitely fits the bill of an anti-hero. She very much is out for revenge. She very much is out for her own good. And if that happens to help other women, then all the better. But Wu Zetian is not a great person. I mean, I love her. I adore her. I would give her the world, but she's not a great person. And it's a YA book, so I get Hard Mode with this one as well. And this is another one that I really loved. Prompt number 3, book club or read along. Any past or active r/fantasy book clubs count. And Hard Mode was must read a current selection of either a book club or read along and participate in a discussion. And I have the same thing that I also have with this year's bingo board, that a lot of people, and I knew that a lot of people pointed out when I said I'm not gonna choose a book from an r/fantasy book club because I do not like interacting with r/fantasy. The bingo is the maximum that I interact with r/fantasy, that it doesn't have to be a current book club pick, that I could just do any book club. However, I still this year and last year decided to not go with any of the book club picks because I'm not interested in, I'm sure I would have found a read that had interested me and that I could have chosen in past, in present, in whatever. And I just still wasn't interested in doing that. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a low effort person, and if I have my own book club that I way more enjoy, by the way, it's of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, it's all about reading adult high fantasy written by women and genderqueer folks, and the Discord links are down below. If I have my own book club, then why should I spend ages going through r/fantasy when I don't actually want that? So that's kind of my logic behind that. And so the book club pick that I picked, which by the way, it's my own book club, but I don't think I read it in time actually. I'm usually quite good with that, but I think that time I was a bit too late because it was a summer pick and I had the worst reading slump last summer. But the book I picked is City of Dusk by Tara Sim, which is the first book in the Dark Gods series. I did actually really enjoy this. Like, I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed it quite as much if I had read it at a different time, but in terms of when I read it, which was just after I had read a bunch of books that I really didn't enjoy, this was just something right up my alley, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I am very much looking forward to getting the second book this year. Fourth prompt for the second row, we have Cool Weapon. At least one main character uses a weapon with magical properties. Hard Mode, the weapon has a unique name. I do have a book for that, and that is The Discord of Gods by Jen Lyons. This was the last book in the A Chorus of Dragons series, which obviously is one of my all-time favorite series. And the main character, well, not just the main character, it kind of very much depends who's on top right now, who has the cool sword, but there's this cool sword called Yorthendriel, I think, which also has the other name Godslayer. It's a really epic sword, I promise. Just read the series, to be honest. And yeah, I really loved it. I absolutely really loved and adored this book. I need to reread this series, basically, is what I'm saying. Next is Revolutions and Rebellions, a book featuring a revolution. Any overthrowing of governments, monarchs, and systems will do. Hard Mode, Revolutions, Rebellion is the main focus of the plot. And for this one, I would say I once again got Hard Mode with The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri, because one of the main plot lines of this series is that you have a princess who is trying to get back the throne from her brother, and she starts a revolution to do that, or a rebellion, whatever you want to call it. I did enjoy this. I didn't quite enjoy it as much as the first book, but you know, I'm still excited to see. I think the next book should be the finale of the series. So we're only at the third row. I really need to get faster, not gonna lie. We have name in the title. A character's first or last name appears in the title. Hard mode, the title has the character's first and last name. So this one I have, where is it? Moon Dark Smile by Tessa Gretton, which is the sequel to Nightshine. And even though it might not seem like it if you're not familiar with the series and not familiar with the way that characters are named within the series, Moon Dark Smile is the name of the main character. Or, well, it's a name of the main character, I would say. Like, there's a lot of things with names going on in this series. And yeah, I once again really enjoyed this. I just really enjoyed Tessa Gretton's writing and world building. Second one in the third row, author uses initials. Read a book by an author who goes by their initials. Hard mode, the initials are a pseudonym and not from the author's actual name. Now, let's see if I can actually... Oh, there it is. I did not have to take them down, actually, but I'm gonna have to take them down soon. But I went with Fable by R.F. Kuang, which obviously, I don't know what the F is for, but the first one is for R.F. Kuang's first name, Rebecca. I think it was Rebecca. And so, yeah, once again, I got it, didn't get hard mode. However, I absolutely adored this book, and it was one of my favorite books of 2023. 2022. Oh my god, I am so confused already. Then next, published in 2022, a book published for the first time in 2022, and hard mode is that it's also a debut novel. And for this one, I have The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah, which, as far as I'm aware, is her debut. And this is Arabian-inspired high fantasy, adult high fantasy. I really enjoyed this. The second book is gonna come out in November, and I cannot wait for it because there were some characters in this book that really intrigued me. So the next one I have is urban fantasy, a subgenre of fantasy in which the narrative uses supernatural elements in a 19th to 21st century urban society. And hard mode is the book has an LGBTQ POV character, and I did beautifully get that with Siren Queen by Nivo. This is urban fantasy, I would say, set at the beginning of the 20th century in Hollywood, so definitely an urban setting, and our main character is queer. And I adored this book. I adore this book so much. I cannot tell you how much I adore this book. Last one for the third row, set in Africa. A book must either be set in Africa or in an analogous setting that is based on a real world African setting. And hard mode is the author is of African heritage. And for this one I have Black Leopard Red Wolf by Marlon James, which is set in a world that is inspired by real life Africa or African cultures, African mythology, and so on. Fourth row we have non-human protagonist. The main character must not be human or partially human. Humanoid aliens or anthropomorphic animals do count. And hard mode was non-humanoid protagonist, and I forgot what I chose for this one. I remember. I chose the Goblin Emperor because in this world you don't really have humans, and our main character is half goblin, half elf, I believe. Yeah, I did not enjoy this. I'm gonna leave it at that. I just was not a fan of the Goblin Emperor. I have a full negative review if you're interested in my full thoughts on it. Next I have Wibbly Wobbly Timey-Wimey, any book that deals with time not behaving as it should. Hard mode is no time travel. The book involves something off about time that's not necessarily time travel. And so for this one, I did cheat a bit because you're not supposed to take two books by the same author, even if you're allowed to have one reread on your bingo board. However, I still had to go with Chen Lyons and The House of Always. And the way this one is Wibbly Wobbly Timey-Wimey is that you have this lighthouse tower thing where when you're inside, time passes, I don't know if, I think faster than outside. Basically, while you're inside, there's a lot of time passing on the outside. I think more time passing on the outside. Yeah, I think that's what it was. So actually inside time passes slower. Anyway, there's this thing, there's this house that's magical, and a lot of characters, most of the characters spent most of the book inside of this house during most of this novel. Obviously it was a reread, so obviously I loved it. Next one is 5 SFF short stories. Any short story as long as there are 5 of them. Hard mode, read an entire SFF anthology or collection. For this one I chose Africa Risen, which is a collection of short story by authors from Africa as well as the African diaspora, so any black authors basically, although I do think there might also be some North African diaspora authors in this anthology. I'm not quite sure right now. But anyway, I did not finish the full collection. I have it once again on my 2023 bingo board, but what I read of it so far I actually did quite enjoy. Next I have Features Mental Health. The story takes a strong interest in or explores themes like mental wellness and illness, self-care and so on. And hard mode is not the Stormlight Archive or any of the books in a linked list, because there was a list of what's it called, recommendations. And for this one I chose The Final Strife by Sara El-Arifi because the main character struggles with addiction. She is quite severely addicted to a substance at the beginning of the story, and it's something that follows her throughout the entirety of the story, obviously. I did enjoy it. It wasn't my favorite, but mostly I had issues with the writing itself because it wasn't quite as complex as I like my writing styles to be. However, overall it still really intrigued me. The second book of this is also coming out, I think in May actually, and I'm looking forward to it. Last one for the fourth row is self-pub or indie pub, which is pretty self-explanatory. Hard mode is self-published and has fewer than 100 ratings on Goodreads. I don't know where it's at now, but like I was the first person I think writing a review for this book. So, you know, safe to say that when I read this it had fewer than 100 ratings. Let's see how far it is right now. Nope, that's not the right one. So right now it still has only 24 ratings and 21 reviews, so still counts as hard mode, and it's Dark Mind by Val Neal. I was also given an ARC of this. This is just the second book in one of my favorite series by now, which is called the Fall of Magic series, and you follow a psychopath and an autistic witch. Like a mage that's a psychopath and a mage that's autistic, and the two of them get up to shenanigans, and it's very enjoyable. I love their dynamic. It's a lot of fun. I could have also chosen this for the previous prompt, I guess, but I chose it for this one. And we're at the last row. Award finalist but not won. Any book that was shortlisted for an award or for multiple awards but never received an award. And hard mode is neither Hugo nominated nor Nebula nominated. And I do remember I got hard mode for this one. I don't remember what award it was though. And the book I'm talking about is Green Rider by Kristen Britton. This one was shortlisted for some award, but it didn't win. I don't remember which one it was. Also, I'm gonna have to talk more quickly now because my battery is almost empty. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It gave me exactly what I wanted from it. Next, BIPOC author. The author must be Black, Indigenous, or a person of color. Hard mode is a book written by an Indigenous author. For this one, I also got hard mode once again because I went with Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse, which is the second book in the Between Earth and Sky series. I was a little bit disappointed by this one, not gonna lie. I love the first one. This one didn't really do it for me, and the author is both Black and Indigenous. Then, next one is Shapeshifters. At least one character has the ability to change their physical form. Hard mode is the most prominent shifter is not a wolf or dog shifter. Got hard mode with this one as well, if I can find the book. And that is Crowbones by Anne Bishop, which is the 8th book in the other series, and the major shifters in this one are crows. It says so in the title. I did really enjoy it. It's just like, Anne Bishop is fun and comfort for me. Then, no ifs, ands, or buts. The title does not include any of the following words: the, a, an, and, or, if, of, but. In hard mode, the title is 3 words or more. And for this one, I have Not Good for Maidens, which obviously is 4 words, so I got hard mode for this one as well. I did really enjoy it. I found it very intriguing. Also, the main character is Ace. And then the last one is Family Matters, a book that features biological family ties, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, grandparents. As long as the relationship plays a part, it's welcome for the square. Hard mode features at least 3 generations of a single family. It didn't get hard mode for this one. However, I would say at the center of Juniper and Thorn is a very dysfunctional and abusive family, and it's about the relationships of the main character to her sisters as well as to her father, and slightly also to her mother. And yeah, so that was it for my 2022 bingo wrap up. Tell me in the comments down below if you have read any of the books, if you have any thoughts on them. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about it, give me a thumbs up, and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box, also the book club in the description box. And I have to finish now because my battery is blinking, or has been blinking for quite a long time. So I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!